so continuing on with circles. This is the second video. If this is the first one you're watching, I do have 2 videos total. With circles, there are 3 main formulas you need. The very first one is going to be your circle formula. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared, where h and k is your center. The other one is the distance formula, so that you can find the distance between 2 things in order to find your radius. It's the main time that is used. And the midpoint formula, that's if you're given the 2 endpoints and you've got to find the center. Which ones you use are going to depend on what your question is asking. Sometimes the questions are only using one formula, the circle, if they give you the center and they give you the radius. Sometimes they're having to use the distance, the midpoint, and the circle if they give you the 2 endpoints. You've got to find the center using the midpoint. Then you've got to find the distance from the center to the edge using the distance formula. And then you plug it all into the circle formula. This question that we have, it says find the equation standard form of a circle with the center at -1, 2 and passing through -2, -1. So they gave us the center. So you need to be very careful as to which point is your center. Our center is that point. Your center is always h comma k. So this is h and k. H equals -1, k equals -2. No, +2, I'm sorry. K equals +2. Yeah. So we could already plug that part of it into our circle formula if we wanted. We'd have x minus a -1 squared plus y minus 2 squared. And we need that to be equal to whatever our radius squared is. So our next step is to find the radius. We have half of our formula already done. All we're missing is the radius. So the radius is the distance from the center to the edge. We have the center. We have a point that the circle is passing through, so that's going to be on the edge of the circle. So what we're going to do is use the distance formula. You're only going to use the midpoint formula if you're not given the center and you're given 2 endpoints. So we do not need the midpoint formula for this particular question. We're going to instead use the distance formula. So I'm going to take my 2 points and just write them over here so they're where I'm working. -1, 2 and -2, -1. So I'm going to label those as x1, y1, x2, y2. I always try to label my points because if I don't, then when I go to pick some out from my formula, my eyes just see 4 numbers. And then they may accidentally grab the wrong one. But if I label them, then when my eyes are looking for a number, it's looking for x2, it sees an x2 and it grabs the number closest to it. So it reduces the likelihood that you will accidentally grab a wrong number. Those are one of the most frustrating problems on a test, is when you do everything right, however, you accidentally grab the wrong number, so you lose credit. Be careful. Make sure you do stuff to safeguard that you are least likely to make a mistake. So the distance formula, square root. In parentheses, you're going to do x2 minus x1. So x2 is a -2. Minus from my formula, x1 is a -1. Be very careful with those double negatives. Remember, anytime your first ordered pair has a negative, you will have a double negative. Okay. Then our formula tells us to add another set of parentheses. y2 is -1, minus from my formula, y1 is 2, and square that set of parentheses as well. Simplify your double negative. We've only got one right now. -2 plus 1 squared, -1 minus 2 squared. And then simplify the arithmetic. -2 plus 1, that's -1 squared. And -1 minus 2 is -3 squared. Anytime you're in doubt and you're not 100% sure, maybe some numbers give you a hard time sometimes, double check with your calculator. One moment of hesitation will expand on a test and trick you into getting the wrong answer. So your distance is -1 squared, which is +1, plus -3 squared, which is +9, square root of 10. Okay. Again, with your radicals, you have an exact answer right here. If I put the square root of 10 into my calculator and I get a decimal, it's going to be a rounded answer. So we want to keep as exact as possible. Plus, when you plug in over here, and you take your square root of 10, and we're not just putting the radius, we're putting the radius squared. So you are going to square the square root of 10. The square root of 10 squared is just 10. Deal with your double negatives. And simplify your formula. So again, a quick recap on circles. 3 formulas, you have the distance formula, the midpoint formula, and the circle formula. All 3 are used depending on what your question is asked. If you were given 2 endpoints and you need to find the center, you're going to start with the midpoint, then use the distance to find the radius, and then plug it all into the circle. If you're given a center and an endpoint, you don't need to find the center. You're given the center, so you don't need midpoint. You're going to start with distance to find the radius, and then plug it into your circle formula. If you're given a center and a radius, all you use is a circle formula. Be careful if you're given a center and a diameter, because the radius is the diameter divided by 2. So make sure you are being careful if you are given a problem like that. All right? Thanks much.